this session. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to KSAA Alumni Fireside Chat Series. Today is an inaugural session, which will be graced by Syed Malek. Thank you for your time. I believe that you are so busy right now in PETRONAS, heading business development department, and talking about renewable energy in various platforms and conferences. I believe even during the COVID time, you always being asked for speakership in other as well. Because why this topic came about is when we had a COVID in 2020, another bigger issue that looming around the world is about climate change. COVID is actually just a pinch of the disaster or pandemic that affecting globally, but we actually are having a much bigger problem than COVID, which is climate change. Therefore, a push for renewable energy since COVID started. Let me introduce you to our speaker, Syed Malek Faisal. Syed Malek joined PETRONAS in 2018 as the head of business development for PETRONAS New Energy. He is responsible to formulate and lead the business development for clean energy projects, including solar, wind, hybrid, and energy solution projects. Prior to this role, he was the CEO of Comos, a company established to spearhead electric mobility solutions in Malaysia. Syed Malek has over 20 years of experience in the automotive industry, electric mobility sector, and renewable energy. Syed Malek received a Khazanah Scholarship Global Award in 2011 to pursue Masters in Technology Policy at the University of Cambridge. He graduated with a first-class honor degree in Mechatronics Engineering from King's College London. Over to you, Syed Malek.
Right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi and very good afternoon. Well, late afternoon, I would say. Thanks, Jazvi, for that introduction. Thank you for giving this opportunity to share some of the, I would say, outlook with regards to the future of energy. And also, I'm glad that we keep this, although this will be the first session, and I think we should continue this because the strong network that we have within the alumni of KSAA. I think we should leverage on that network. And share experience, share knowledge, and in fact, perhaps share opportunity, be it personal or even the business opportunity with regards to moving forward. So I think the topic I'll cover today is mainly on the future of energy. I'll do an overview of the renewable energy global perspective, and then zoom into Malaysia, and also what we are doing in PETRONAS with regards to renewable. Right, an overview of the global energy. So, in fact, just recently ended the COP26 in Glasgow. More than 200 nations have agreed to adopt to this Glasgow Climate Pact 2021. I think the key items that all countries need to secure to keep the 1.5 degrees within reach will be to accelerate the phase out of coal. We've seen this happening in the past few years to not introduce any new coal power plant and to decommission those coal plants earlier. Second will be on the curtail of the deforestation, speed up the switch to electric vehicles. I do have some experience in e-mobility before that I can share with this. Ultimately, the one that I'm currently working on is on the encourage investment in renewables. That is evident. I think we can see even in Malaysia with regards to the growth of the renewable energy. Now, why this is all happening? The attention towards low carbon economy, the attention towards this energy transition. First, related to the first slide I presented, all regards to the climate change policy. It all started with the Paris Climate Agreement, COP15, 2015, which wants to limit the global warming below 2 degrees. And because of that, all countries are working towards tighter emissions and increase renewables in the energy mix. At the same time, on the right side, you look into the increased world demand for renewable. So in this case, we can see that there's a strong demand for renewable year-on-year growth. I have another slide to explain this further, but it can be seen that due to costs and due to other strong reasons, you can see that the countries are pushing to more renewable in the energy mix. Technology advancement, all this advancement in renewables are also complemented by the technology advancement in energy storage. For example, we are aware that renewable energy are intermittent, you can only have the power when the sun is shining and when the wind is blowing. So you need energy storage to complement this intermittency. Artificial intelligence with regards to the IoT of energy, blockchain. These are some of the technologies that enable for the further advancements of renewables. And obviously on the right hand side, we talk about the pressure from shareholders. There's a lot of stakeholders asking for more commitment towards climate change. We have an advocacy group working on this as well. So those are a lot of factors that are affecting why people are moving towards this energy transition. Now we look at the market. I mentioned this now about the growth. The initial growth for renewables are mainly dominated by more developed countries like North America and Europe. But now moving forward towards at least by 2050, you can see the shift is more towards Asia Pacific, particularly China will be the major player for renewable energy, and followed by India and all other Southeast Asia, or in fact East Asia countries like Korea, Japan, Southeast Asia, and Australia. So that will be the significant growth that the North America and Europe, when the market is more mature, the cost has already reached a level that it is very, I would say, thin margin with regards to the business over there. Hence, I think the growth now is more focusing towards the Asia Pacific region. And I think the signs are very clear for clean energy. We have countries that pledge for net zero carbon. At least 121 nations now have pledged, including Malaysia, for carbon neutrality between 2030 and 2050. We have investors like, for example, in this case, we show example of BlackRock moving away from carbon-heavy companies. They want to exit investment in coal by mid-2020s. And in fact, we have in Malaysia, having announced plan to stop financing new coal activities and focus more on carbon neutral position of emission by 2030. Those are clear examples with regard to shareholders. And now we have more capital support for green investment. For example, in Malaysia, PETRONAS announced our net zero carbon target as well, and putting more effort in ESG, and globally as well. You can see the rise in ESG team funds in even beginning 2020 compared to the past few years. So you get a lot of support for green investment on this. So that's how somehow we'll provide that, and a better, I would say, catalyst for the this new energy. Right. Now, with regards to cost trend, if you look at this chart, right, even I would say data from the past 10 years, if you look at solar, for example, the yellow color, the cost has significantly dropped in the region of 400 LCOE. LCOE is actually the measurement of a levelized cost of electricity, and you can see more than the cost dropped from at least 400 to below $100 per megawatt hour. That has somehow increased the penetration of solar in most of the renewable mix that we can see in many countries. Wind also, we can see some trend in reducing, but not as significant as solar. But these are the two key technologies that we can see quite a significant drop with regards to the generation costs. And another new technology, as mentioned earlier, battery storage. You can see now the drop is actually quite very significant, now reaching to the level that nearly reaching $100 per megawatt hour. And then I believe that the trend is actually going even down further. That makes complement better the other two technologies like wind and solar that will provide better solution to customers in this case. I think these are the key factors that encourage or that increase the penetration of renewables globally. And now I'm zooming into Malaysia. So from the data that been shared by SEDA is the authority for sustainable development in Malaysia. We can see that the solar is basically the key technology or the high growth RE which amounted to about nearly 270 gigawatt potentials in this case, particularly in the peninsula. And hydro being the second largest, about 13.4. And if you look at hydro, it's predominantly in the areas of Sarawak, because there are a lot of dams in Sarawak, as well as a few in peninsula. Others are considered quite small with regards to the mix. On the wind, I know there have been a lot of questions asking whether wind is suitable in Malaysia or not. Unfortunately, Malaysia is in a region where the wind speed is not that high. You need a certain level of minimum wind speed to ensure that you can develop wind projects that provide commercial value to that. So in Malaysia, unfortunately, the wind speed is too low. Although maybe, a lot of companies are looking into other technology that can win. For example, that the low wind speed technology that we can bring into Malaysia to ensure that we can still capture or develop those wind technology with the low wind speed that we have in Malaysia. But surrounding Malaysia, of course, in the areas like Vietnam, India, Australia, and so on, you do have quite significant number of wind to make the wind project commercially viable. So this is just an overview, and you can see here it's more, I would say, solar dominant for Malaysia RE potential. And with regards to the target, Malaysia is targeting about 40% of total capacity of power mix by renewables by 2035. And our immediate target for Malaysia is actually 31% renewable mix by 2025, including large hydro. And these are the targets that the government has set, which will potentially be achievable by 2025. And now I think the government, through SEDA and ST and to the KSAA Ministry, is really working hard to ensure that not just solar but other renewables energy are also being exploited. Things like biogas, biomass, and so on. There are still a lot of incentives that are being put by the government. Obviously, that the most popular one is still solar in this case, but because there's a lot of potential for solar, and there's a lot of I would say initiatives or policies that are being developed around solar. As this is to support the earlier slides, that we can see that the solar has the most potential here in Malaysia. So if we look into the solar, if you look at the the yellow bar, right? So you can see quite a significant growth from now, at least by 2030 to 2050. In fact, it's expected to have at least nearly 11% CAGR growth from 2020 to 2050 compared to other renewables in this case. So that is why I think the government is pushing towards having more solar in Malaysia as a part of the energy mix. And to share some of the initiatives or schemes that have been developed to support solar development in Malaysia. Malaysia started first with mechanism called feed-in tariff, and this is way back in 2013, 2014 when the government launched this. It is in a way a subsidy to ensure that the high costs, at the time 10 years ago, solar was quite high with regards to costs, and those enable solar projects to be developed at a higher tariff subsidized by the government. And we've seen quite a big plant that has been developed for this initial phase. And once the solar has matured in Malaysia, the government switched because of the decline, because of the reduction in overall solar costs, that the government has decided just not to introduce any more subsidy by the feed-in tariff, but to offer other type of initiative that can extend further the growth of solar in Malaysia. And in 2017, the government launched the large-scale solar tender program with the idea of the developer to compete and provide competitive tariff offering to the government. So it started with LSS1, with each developer has to develop a maximum of 50 megawatt size. Just want to share with you with regards to just to give you some sense of size, right? For 1 megawatt capacity of solar, you require at least 1 hectare of land, about 2.5 acres. So imagine a 50 megawatt solar like this will take at least 50 hectares of land to develop. So started with LSS number 1 and continue every year. And last year was the introduction of LSS number 4. And we were informed that the government will continue to release or to tender out the LSS number 5, 6, and so on until 2025, until we achieve our 31% RE target. So that is one of the key initiatives that the government has developed through large-scale solar program. And to encourage the solar development for rooftop, I think the government has 2 schemes. One, they call it self-consumption, and the other is net energy metering. For self-consumption is where consumers or in this case, customers will actually invest in solar, but use it only for own internal self-consumption to reduce their electricity bill and to reduce their load and so on. Whereas on the net energy metering scheme is where any surplus from your or excess that being developed as solar, which is not being used internally or consumed internally, we're able to export it back to the grid at some prevailing displaced cost. So for example, with the recent NEM 3.0 offering, there were a few schemes, there was few categories. There is NEM Nova, where for commercial and industrial customers, any access to the grid, you can only sell it at we call it system marginal price, depending on the price available during that month. Whereas for NEM Rakyat and NEM Gomen, which specifically tailored for government buildings as well as for residential, you are still allowed to sell back to the grid at a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning to say that if you buy the electricity at 50 cents, you're able to sell back that electricity at 50 cents, but again, not by money, but by a kilowatt hour reference. So 1-to-1 you sell back to the grid. So those are the, and we can see that with the introduction of NEM, you can see quite significant increase in take-up rate by both residential as well as commercial and industrial customers in this, because that will not only help to reduce their electricity bill, but also support their internal sustainability agenda with regards to low carbon initiative and so on. So these are what we have now in Malaysia with regards to schemes and policies. Now, on my last part of presentation, I would like to share what PETRONAS is working with regards to this energy transition, how we manage, how we position ourselves with regard to this energy transition. We are committed to achieve net zero carbon emission, and just to share that way back in 2017, PETRONAS announced the stepping out strategy into renewable energy. And in 2019, we introduced our new statement of purpose, which is a progressive energy and solutions partner enriching lives for a sustainable future. So you can see here that there's no oil and gas word being mentioned here. It's more about us, providing energy solutions for sustainable future. And with this also, there's in 2019 we made quite a big announcement by actually making an acquisition of a company called M+, HQ in Singapore and main operations in India. And M+, in fact, is one of the top solar developer for commercial and industrial customers in India. And through that, we developed the Malaysian business, which I will elaborate further in the next coming slides. And we also look into not just solar and wind, right? We also look into the hydrogen business. There's another entity that was established late last year under the gas and new energy business to look into hydrogen. And we also have a corporate venture that look into investment of all these new energies. So in all, what we're doing now, after the announcement of a net zero carbon last year, is to support our net zero carbon aspiration by 2050. And for the technology that new energy, PETRONAS New Energy is actually embarking, we are looking to 2 key technologies, which is the high growth that I've mentioned, in the previous slides. The 2 technologies are growing is solar and wind. So for solar, we look into both distributed and large-scale solar. Distributed is where I mentioned just now about the rooftop solar, where we install solar to customers and they use it internally for their self-consumption or selling back to grid and the net energy metering. Large-scale solar is where we develop under the large-scale tender by the government. And for wind, we are exploring both onshore and offshore wind. Again, I mentioned earlier, it will not be for Malaysia, but this is for markets like Vietnam, Taiwan, or even Australia. We are leveraging our strength in offshore to actually develop the capability in this offshore wind. Now, on top of that, we are also looking into this, we term it as a flexible generation, where we look into the integration of solar, wind, and energy storage together to provide total energy solutions to customers. So these are the key two, I would say, two main technologies, solar and wind, as well as integrating with energy storage to provide a complete total energy solutions to customers. Now, with regards to our portfolio, I mentioned earlier with M+ in India, we have more than 800 megawatts of capacity in India. And also M+ has operation in Dubai. We just started operation in Dubai and with about 8 megawatt capacity. We are currently exploring opportunity development for renewables in Vietnam, both in solar and wind. And for Malaysia, we have nearly 100 megawatts under construction and also under pipeline. And all this is being supported by more than 300 professional team members in India and Malaysia. And we're working with major clients, which includes Amazon, Yamaha, Schlumberger, the likes of Tesco, ABB, Intel. So these are all our major clients that span across in India as well as in Malaysia. And the solutions that we're offering is actually the 4 types of solutions, mainly for commercial, industrial, and residential. The first one will be, we call it as on-site solar. This is where we install either rooftop or car park solution for customers, for them to reduce their own internal consumption and sell back to the grid if the policy allows. The second part, which we call is off-site solar, this is where I take example, which I will explain later in my next slide, is for a country like India, for example, they allow you to actually develop a large-scale solar solution and use the grid to supply that to customers located somewhere. Just to give you an example, say for example, we have a large solar farm in Pahang, and what we'll do is we develop that large solar farm in Pahang, we use TNB grid, we pay certain charges to TNB and supply those power to KLCC in this case. So by doing that, because as we're aware that we don't have enough space within KLCC to install, I would say solar in this case, but we will leverage the other locations and then use the grid to power to supply that power. And this is actually available in countries like India and some other more developed countries. In Malaysia, the policy still doesn't allow us to do that, but I believe that the government is working on a future, particularly with a more liberalized market, to ensure that this can be done. And also we work on the third pillars on the battery storage and hybrid solutions. We have done some application in India and also looking to some application within PETRONAS. So this is something that we believe able to complement both solar and wind. And finally, we do have our own data monitoring system, Hawk AI, we call it, enable for us to do preventive maintenance on our asset, at the same time providing customers the information they need with regards to how much carbon they save, what is the solar output that they have, how much CO2 and so on. These are the things that we can able to provide customers. Now, on the right-hand side, at the same time, we also offer solutions to residential, mainly in India, through a program called, or a brand called Homescape. In Malaysia, we only offer this Homescape or solar for residential to PETRONAS staff, where we develop a very special scheme to PETRONAS staff to buy or to install solar purchase at your home at very competitive price. And we do provide special financing as well for this. We have no intention yet to expand this for other residential market in Malaysia, but it's something that we are currently exploring just internally. Now, I mentioned about electric vehicles and my experience before with Faisal PETRONAS with this. With M+ in India, they are actually serving multinational companies like Amazon, big basket and so on. So there's also another needs on pinpoint by the customers who wanted to have or want to greenify the logistics of the business. And in this case, we were offering, we provide them solar solutions. At the same time, they were asking anything else that we can do that can address their pain point logistics. So M+ came out with another new startup company called Yellow, where we provide last mile delivery solutions for the likes of Amazon and Basket. So we provide a three-wheeler, EV three-wheeler, and we package it either with drivers or with the customers having provided their own drivers and so on. So by that, we enable customers to greenify their logistic through EV application in this case. And we provide the charging infrastructure as well throughout this. So by doing this, we are extending our solar solutions by having additional EV solution to customers. On other areas, we're also looking to energy efficiency solution as well as the International Renewable Energy Certificate or IREC, something that we are currently able to trade. We have done this in India, but we are currently maturing this to enable to apply this to Malaysia as well. So these are just to some of the offerings that we have with PETRONAS. And in fact, if, for example, any of you working in a company that requires any of this solution, do reach out to me personally, and then we will try to see that where we can support. Again, just to share, this is one of the open access 175 megawatt peak in Karnataka, India. So we will look at the size, 175 megawatt peaks, around 175 hectares. So this is applying to via the grid to customers like ABB, Honeywell, Cisco, located in the different sites, and we supply it by the grid. And some of the installation that we have in Malaysia, we have our first under the feed-in tariff scheme, 10 megawatt solar IPP that was developed way back in 2013. We do have also installed solar in our KLCC, but then that time was mainly looking into learning different kind of technology and so on. And recently, I think we have secured deal with Tesco, known as Lotus, to install 15 of their sites with solar that mounted about 13 megawatt of capacity for Tesco sites within Peninsula. Additionally, we installed our research center in Bangi, gas distribution center in Seremban. We're also working closely with our retail station, the PETRONAS retail station, at least to launch our first Klang Valley. I think more than 70 stations has been identified, targeted to be installed completely by early next year. Recently, we also have installed in one of the engineering yard in Pasir Gudang, Johor. I think that is the biggest single installation under one compound. We are also in progress to install in the University of Technology PETRONAS, the main Chancellor building. Again, it will be largest under single roof, about 7.3 megawatt capacity. And by early next year, inshallah, we'll be completing our Pengerang site, 50 megawatt, which will be the biggest so far in our capacity for that. So that is showing where we are now with regards to Malaysia development. I think that's the end of my slide. Just to share, just to show an overview where we have here in PETRONAS, and perhaps something that if you're interested to look into your organization, something that we can explore as well. I think that's some of my presentation today, and it will be good to have open for questions from the audience.
Thank you, Syed Malek, for very concise and interesting presentation. Then I believe that a lot of us now can see that PETRONAS are really serious about going for clean energy sector, moving towards more renewable energy business and opportunity. Now I open a question to the floor. If you have, you can ask in the chat box, or you can turn on your camera and mic and ask away, Syed Malek.
We have one.
We have one in the chat. Okay, the question from Khalif Johari, Khazanah scholar studying mechanical engineering in Edinburgh. So his question is, what do you think about the potential of carbon capture in Malaysia, and is it something PETRONAS is working on? Would the technology slow down the development of renewable energy?
Very interesting question. Yes, in fact, carbon capture storage is part of the technology that requires for overall decarbonization of initiative, and obviously PETRONAS is also working on that for that, looking into all our operations in particularly in upstream. So that is something that PETRONAS is seriously looking into as part of our overall targets to achieve net zero carbon emission. And I believe that is also currently what other, not just oil and gas company, but a lot of other initiatives being done globally to support this as well. So yes, they will not slow down. It is actually complementing renewable development. You cannot have a single solution for all. We need to, I would say, in parallel develop, I would say, various initiatives to support any of your net zero carbon aspiration.
Okay, we have two raising hands. Maybe we can start with Daniel Iman.
Hello, hi. My name is Daniel Iman. Currently, I'm with UJSB, Urusata Jamaah, Special Officer to the CEO. The reason why I'm interested about this solar is because of one of the portfolio that we manage is hotels. And one of the suggestions that we were looking at is either to reduce the cost of our operations by having solar to reduce our utility costs. So my question is, how much cost saving typically that a company or a building can manage to get from installing solar instead of using the conventional rate that was imposed by Tenaga? And secondly, is there any major project that is going to be that PETRONAS going to embark on, given that the government had announced during the 2022 budget that they are going to encourage more people of having electric vehicle?
Okay. All right. Thanks, Daniel. I'll take the first question first. The typical cost savings, right? From, I would say, a rooftop project that you're able to install in your premise, we expect at least between 10 to 20% savings you can obtain from solar. For example, you're paying like 36 cents industrial rate, then at least 32 or 33 cents, something that solar can offer. Obviously, it depends on the overall capacity. The bigger the capacity you can install, the more lower tariff that you can obtain from solar. So in this case, it's actually more, I'm looking more into what we call it as a zero capex model or power purchase agreement, PPA model, power purchase agreement model, where typically, like in PETRONAS, we become the investor. To customers, they don't have to invest any single cents. As an investor, we will provide, develop, and install the solar solution at the customer side, and we sign typically like a 20-year agreement. And that is where we provide that tariff, which can provide 20 to 20% savings to customers. And after 20 years, then the customer can opt whether to continue to own the asset or we decommission the asset and put it somewhere else. So that is currently the business model that we have, a zero capex model. And by doing that, customer will be able to save, as what you mentioned, as what I mentioned just now, about 10 to 20% savings. Just to answer your question number one. With regards to electric vehicles, e-mobility, PETRONAS, I mentioned just now, one of the initiatives that we started in my presentation earlier was on the last mile delivery, looking into providing logistics solution by EVs. But even before that, a few years back, PETRONAS has also worked together with Malaysian Wintech Technology and DTC to install chargers at our charging infra at our petrol station. We have installed, I think, nearly about 70 stations with all the EV chargers. So this is again, we're able to support the future EV development here in Malaysia, and we believe that we might also increase this capacity further if we have more EVs in the country, especially after the announcement of the new budget. Additionally, our lubricant business is also, involved indirectly with EV by offering lubrication solutions for electric motors and so on. So there's been pockets of initiative being done differently within the group, but definitely we know that electric vehicles is something that will eventually come. So it is, something that we need to and also work towards support, embracing ourselves to get ready when the EV actually comes in place in Malaysia. Not just in Malaysia, but I think globally in this case.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a question from Zairin. What are the prospects of offshore wind farms in Malaysia? If I'm not mistaken, wind speeds off the coast of Malaysia is not sufficient for energy production. Are floating offshore structures an option going forward in deeper waters?
Okay, so the question was about potential of offshore wind in Malaysia, right?
Yes.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, the key to wind development in Malaysia is the wind speed itself. So in order for any wind projects to be commercially viable, we're talking about wind speed of about at least above 5 meters per second. And there's only a few tiny spots within Malaysia that has this kind of potential. It may not be continuous, so we need at least 5 meters per second continuous, and that's within the area of Sabah and so on. So there have been quite a number of prelim assessment of the wind speed, but I think there needs to be more thorough, I would say, wind measurement across those identified areas. So from that, I think then the technical and commercial viability can be assessed, because wind development take quite a while. For example, when you have identified a spot, you need at least 1 year of wind measurement worth, so that you can make further analysis whether is it worth or not to proceed with that. So one year of wind measurement is required, that specific location, and then identifying what kind of technology that you're going to deploy to that. If it's an offshore technology, will it be a floating structure? Will it be a fixed structure and so on? So that is something that will be developed further once the minimum, I would say, wind speed has been identified and secured. So in Malaysia, just to sum up, in Malaysia at the moment, because of low wind speed, we see less potential. But with the advancement of technology, if we have more, I would say, if the technology for the lower wind speed is available, then something is, I would say, feasible to do in Malaysia.
All right, thank you for the response. I think we have a lot of questions in the chat. We try to answer it as much as we can. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Azrudi. Are you there? If you want to ask question.
Hello, testing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and I'm glad to hear about the projected success of your business. My question is actually on the general consumer perspective, because your perspective is the business, you sell energy to the grid and you propose earning from the grid. My question is, as we see grids with high penetration of solar energy, such as the grids in Germany, South Australia, California, they have recorded high domestic electricity prices compared to their neighbors, compared to their peers. However, solar prices have become the cheapest it's ever been, but electricity costs have risen to the highest it has ever been. What is your insight to why this is?
Okay. If I try to understand that question again, right? It's more on the developed countries, right? You mentioned just now, right? On the example, right?
Sure.
Okay. So my view on this is in the more mature market, where the electricity prices liberalized, there were a few mechanisms developed with regards to different price of electricity at different times of the day, and also the trading of electricity to support certain requirements of the day and so on. And that is basically where Renewable came in to provide, in this case, to support the peak requirement in certain, for example, to California, right? When the use of solar is mainly to support the peak requirement. And because of that, those peak are actually being traded as a very high, I would say, a higher electricity price that being sold to the grid. And somehow that is being transferred to, or being passed through to customers. Why? So that's why they're paying higher to that. Whereas in Malaysia, for example, right, in the more, I would say, non-liberalized market in Malaysia, the electricity tariff is fixed. I mean, we only have a fixed tariff even for residential or even for I mean, for commercial, there was some night and daytime different, but if you look at residential, it's only one fixed tariff that you have. If you have solar, for example, internally, when you install solar at home, obviously you can reduce those because solar provide savings from that because you consume less from the grid, then you're able to sell back to the grid. Even if you have solar in large scale that provide anything to the grid, because of the generally the leverage cost of electricity for solar in Malaysia is still low compared to the general published tariff to customers. Hence, there will be no impact. So if to customers in this case. So I think it's more on the market specific in this case. So in the market, like in the more liberalized country, because of the trading allowable, that might be the reason why it has somehow been passed through to customers compared to that market in Malaysia.
Am I allowed to ask follow-up questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, your position is that it's because of the liberalized markets. That's why the savings from renewable energy technologies, that the costs have dropped very low. They're not passed through the consumers, right? But in Malaysia, because our tariff is fixed by ST, therefore we might not see this increase in tariffs. However, according to Suruhanjaya Tenaga's report early this year, they have projected that our grid prices are going to increase by about 40% by 2050, because we are pursuing one of them, which we're pursuing more renewable energy. We are shutting down coal and we are using more gas to support the intermittency of renewable energy. So my follow-up question is, it is one thing for people to save on electricity bills, like you said, if they install their own solar panels on their homes. But if it results in higher electricity tariffs for everyone else, because the people who suffer from from poverty, if they're poor, because they have lots of people in the house under one roof, under one electricity bill, they're not going to be able to benefit from government subsidies. Like the first 200 units, the price is very cheap, like in our the tariffs that we have in Malaysia. So if their bills become higher because they cannot afford a landed property and they cannot install solar panels, but because the tariffs have to increase according to Suruhanjaya Tenaga's estimate, is this a good thing, do you think?
Well, obviously, if it's for the rakyat, it's not a good thing. Any increase in tariff that will impact the general public will not be good. I think that's why if you look at the energy mix, the target that ST put in the report, 31% by 2025 and 40% by 2035. The bulk of it will still be the majority will still be predominantly gas and still some level of coal. I would say some small portion of coal inside that. I think this is where the balance will be between the additional renewables. But just to correct a bit on the statement, right? If you look at even the latest large-scale solar tender, the price or even the tariff that we offered, these are in the range of like 17 or 18 cents,
15 cents. It's cheaper than that. It's 15 cents.
Right. Yeah. So basically, if that amount can be transferred directly to customers, in fact, people are enjoying cheaper electricity through renewables. But the question will be, if we want to ensure more renewables penetration, will the grid be stable? Hence, if you want to ensure that stability, you need, other renewables like hydro or even storage. At the moment, storage is still not economically viable to be installed. Not until I would say another 5 or 6 or even 10 years until you can make it viable. But you need to complement that with some other technologies. But I believe even look at solar price now, we should get, in fact, not higher, but lower tariff, because we've seen that in the current LSS tenders.
Right. Thank you. Just to comment, just to reply on what you said, I'm going to put something in the chat, and I think you might be able to appreciate this maybe more than anyone else. It's a paper that I suggest you look into. Well, that's all I really want to say, and thank you for sharing.
All right. Thanks very much. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Azrudi. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out a few questions, then Syed Malek can answer in one go. Can we do that? So first question from Puan Rajanodara. So in your view, how do you see the prospect of renewable energy in Malaysia? For fresh graduate interested in this field, what are some advices that you want to share with them? Okay. And next question is by Puan Intan. Does PETRONAS have a big appetite to invest in upcoming EV manufacturers and battery manufacturers? And the third one is from Zulfadli. So Fadli currently is from BT. So he asked question, in your opinion, how could we better leverage this international forum such as Paris Agreement and also COP26 in accelerating our work in this renewable energy space, and how we can further strengthen collaboration between private sector and government on this issue? So the first one, your advice for fresh graduates on renewable energy sector. Second is on EV, invest in EV. And the third one on the public-private partnership, and also how we can leverage an international forum and accord for this initiative.
I'll take the first one, how we will encourage fresh graduate, right? So if you're still studying, I would say if there are opportunity to take additional courses on, or participate just to get additional knowledge on renewable, and that's something that, will be beneficial. I mean, just to share some experience when I was in Cambridge last time, because of the open knowledge and open lectures on certain topics, that I took the initiative to learn more on renewable, and that was my first exposure on renewables, because I came from an automotive background before I took the masters, right? So that was my first, I would say, exposure to that by taking additional lessons on that and attending forum and conferences and so on. So I think that's something that you can do immediately if you're studying. If you wanted to pursue more on this, obviously by joining companies that do provide renewable opportunities. Even in Malaysia, you do have international companies that are based in Malaysia, but there's a lot of, I would say, more opportunities in Singapore, I would say, if you want to be serious to engage in renewables. So those are the areas that you can start with, to learn to that, to venture into this business, I would say. The second is this question is on the EV manufacturer, right?
Yes.
I know there's a lot of incentives being announced with the recent budget, as well as under the low carbon mobility roadmap by the Malaysia Green Technology. So at the moment we are reviewing the options, PETRONAS, but since manufacturing in EV is not our real, I would say, core business, there's a lot of considerations that we need to look into with regards to manufacturing. I know that some of our other oil and gas players like Pertamina in Thailand, for example, they are into manufacturing because there's a lot of incentive for EVs there in Thailand with regards to the automotive industry. Now on battery storage, again, there's something that we are more interested on the system integration part, providing those solutions rather than the manufacturing of battery, because I believe that there are already strong existing players with regards to battery storage and so on. So might as well we work together with them to provide an integrated solutions to customers. Now, if you can enlighten me the third question.
Okay, the third question. So how we can leverage the agenda, the international agenda, such as Paris Agreement and also international forum like APEC, to accelerate our work in renewable energy space, and how we can further strengthen the collaboration between private sector and government on this issue.
I think for the first part, it is more on, I would say, Malaysia role, right? I think we have made a good step in participating in COP26 Glasgow, clearly highlighting our intent, and with the announcement by the Prime Minister of us being carbon neutral by 2050, that is in fact an evidence that we are seriously pushing towards this. So that is mainly from the top, right, Malaysia. And with that, I think companies, particularly GLCs, have to start first in ensuring or in pushing towards this sustainability agenda. I think that we have seen that a lot of companies in Malaysia are also championing sustainability as part of their key agenda. So that is where what companies should embrace to support the Malaysia initiative in that. Public-private partnership, I think there have been a lot of initiatives that have been developed both. I mean, in fact, in renewable, you won't be able to do it by yourself. It has to be on partnership basis. There have been a lot of projects. Well, I think if you look at internally within Malaysia, we can work together with the government to build a large-scale solar for very specific use in this case, or even looking into powering up government buildings in this case to reduce consumption and so on. Just to share more on a bigger scale, but in a smaller scale, we look into how solar and storage can help to provide, I would say, rural electrification in this case, for some areas which are, not under electricity coverage. Perhaps solar and battery can be a medium to bridge the gap of this rural electrification. I think that is just a quick, I like a few examples, but there will be a lot of other potential, and just something that has been started, and I believe that could be further enhanced in this case.
All right. So next two questions. First one is from Azizur Rahman. Does Malaysia has any mandatory regulation or policy to maintain renewable portfolio standards? So second one is from Riz Nordin. First, how do you estimate the solar installation cost saving at the beginning of the project? And do you offer battery storage as part of the solar installation package?
The first question is on the regulation, is it? Or standards? Yeah? Okay. There's no specific, I would say, renewable standards. So if you look at solar, for example, of course, the standards will be with regards to safety standards, with regards to installation standards, but there's not really like a strong reference for that. Yeah, I mean, unlike they're all following. For example, if there's an electrical standard for interconnection and so on, so all will be guided by that. So there's no really specific, what type of PV module you need to use, what kind of inverters that you need to use. There's no specific requirement for that, as long as you're all following a general electrical standards in this case, because it's just a power generation, can be similar to any other power generation standards that is currently available. And the second question.
So it's more on the solar installation. So how do you estimate the installation cost? And do battery storage come with it?
Yeah. Normally, if you look into when we're about to start a project, we will look into sizing. So look into the potential roof, or if, say, for example, we look in the premise in one of the safe factory. So we look on the potential size available on the roof or within the premise, how much capacity can be installed, and we look also on their electricity demand to the bills, because we can only install up to 75% of the maximum demand of the bill. So from that, we do the sizing, we identify what's the capacity. Say, for example, we identify 1 megawatt capacity. From that, we can do a simulation or analysis on what will be the potential generation. And from that, we can also identify what will be the cost to develop that, and project what will be the savings to customers. So that can be done upfront, even before we do the installation. And with that information, we can tell the customers, okay, this is your potential capacity size, and this is your potential tariff. You're able to move forward with the proposal, and then that's where we start to, work further in installing or developing those. So for battery storage at the moment for Malaysia, if we were to include battery storage, I think the economics doesn't work, because the price is still high for battery. Because in general, Malaysia electricity tariff considered quite low compared to other countries. So we are trying to look into battery storage application for non-residential, non-commercial industry, maybe perhaps in the off-grid solution where people are paying high for diesel genset and so on. That could be a potential where we can look into having battery. I hope that answers the questions now on that.
All right. So we have two final questions. First from Daniel Iman, another additional question. Is PETRONAS looking to convert their fleet of tank truck into EV? And second one from Syed Afiq. Syed Afiq asking, is PETRONAS looking into reverse fuel cell system? For instance, converting harmful emissions such as CO2 and CO into useful fuel such as ethylene or methane.
The first question was on the converting
the fleet of tanks, the gas lorry to EV.
Okay. Well, no intention yet. Commercial EVs are currently cost is quite high, but we will keep following the technology. If, for example, there are in fact not just EVs, if there are potential hydrogen application for that vehicle, that's something that we can explore as well. But I think it's too early to predict that. We believe more EV penetration will be on two-wheelers and four-wheelers, in this case for normal commercial passenger rather than the commercial one. The second question was
on reverse fuel cell system.
Interesting. To be honest, I don't have much knowledge on that. I know the team in our research division is looking into electrolysis as part of that, but not really into this conversion as what we mentioned just now. Obviously the research team is looking into possible potential technology as well. That's something that I believe the team can explore in future, but not at the moment, to my knowledge, that we have that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the answer. Okay, last question, Shakirin, ni betul-betul last ya. Last question, since you mentioned PETRONAS started to venture into hydrogen-related industry, does PETRONAS keen to collaborate or follow the footsteps of Toyota in making hydrogen fuel cell car?
Our approach in hydrogen is more on the storage part as well as the energy part of it, not on the transportation. I know Toyota, being an automotive company is also looking to focusing hydrogen as part of their transportation agenda. But for us, it's more on storage, it's more on the other part of hydrogen business, not really on transportation. But we do develop that. We will develop that. To partner with any other partners who are willing or quite open to work with partners if they are looking into that as part of their transportation agenda. Yeah, because we do have our we what we call it as a blue hydrogen within our plant, and together with New Energy, we are working into the green hydrogen part using renewables to in the electrolysis technology, using renewables to actually convert those into green hydrogen, and that is what we are currently working with our hydrogen team more on that, working in the green hydrogen part.
All right, thank you, Syed Malek, for your sharing. And also, I believe that based on those questions and those response, this is going to be a continuous session in 2022. Thank you, Syed Malek, for being the first ever speaker for Fireside Chat. We will have more session like this, a casual evening session on various topics depending on the background of the alumni, and then you can get to know alumni and collaborate and network together. Perhaps, Syed Malek, if we can share your email address if they have more questions or they want to have a collaboration to you.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, my chat is disabled. I won't be able to chat.
Let me share your email address.
Okay, you can share my email address in the chat. Yeah?
So there you go. I shared Syed Malek email in the chat if you want to have to take this conversation after this with him. And again, thank you for participating, and do click on the Menti link and give feedback to us. And also in the feedback, you can also propose what kind of topics that you are interested in. And also, if you want to become speaker as well, do directly contact me. Maybe we can have a session next year. For December, there is no Fireside chat session. I believe a lot of people want to spend their leave, annual leave. So enjoy end year leave to all of you. And thank you for coming to this session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.